Mr. Begley, members of the board, we do have quite a few items for board discussion this evening. Mr. Martin will be leading the discussion for items 1 through 4. So at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, Mr. Begley, members of the board. The first item for discussion are 3 board policies. I'm going to talk to you about the first one, which is policy AFC-2. This policy appears in 2 places in our policy manual, so it's also found under GCN-2. It's called the evaluation of professional staff, and this is dealing with administrator evaluations and very specifically about principal evaluations. This current year, we made the transition for our teachers from the Ohio Teacher Evaluation System, which is called OTES. The state made some major changes in that, and it came out new as OTES 2.0. Well, the state law describes that, or shares, that the principal's evaluation system has to mirror the teacher evaluation system. So once they've changed the teacher evaluation system, now it's time to change the principal evaluation system. And it's called OPES, Ohio Principal Evaluation System. So it's being changed. All the verbiage is there in the policy. I will highlight 2 major changes that are taking place. In the past, 50% of a principal's evaluation was based on data, value added, and other scores that they would have. And that is done away with for the teachers now. And it's been replaced by something called high-quality student data. It's still data-driven, but it doesn't form 50% of the person's evaluation. It just simply rated within the rubric that they're rated using. So we've already developed the new OPES 2.0 manual for all of our administrators. They've all been trained in it. Well, the principals have, the assistant principals will be trained this month. So it's all ready to go for next year. We just have to change the policy. All of the principal evaluations are completed for the year, so we're going ahead to change the policy now that will be in place from this time until they decide to change it again. But OPES 2.0. Any questions about this policy? Mrs. Ogg is going to cover the next 2.
Sure. So let's start with policy IKF, the graduation requirements. So as a result of Senate Bill 1, it is now required for students entering 9th grade for the first time this July to complete 1/2 unit of financial literacy. This unit can be used toward the elective credits required for graduation or in lieu of a 1/2 unit of instruction in math, but that comes with several stipulations. And those stipulations are spelled out in the policy. We also, just to update this policy or take the opportunity while we were updating this policy, we added some clarifying language regarding social studies requirements. That's on page 1. The financial literacy language can be found on page 2. So these changes affect our current 8th graders who will be 9th graders next year. Financial literacy right now, it's not required as a unit of credit for students. We include it as part of our government curriculum. But this Senate Bill 1 requires us to dedicate a 1/2 unit requirement for our students. So we have been having a lot of conversation about this. We have to figure out how to make that work in our students' schedules. So if you look on the policy here, what our intention is, and we've been having conversation with Butler Tech, is to replace our pathways requirement with the financial literacy requirement. The career pathways will still be an option for students. It will become an elective, and the financial literacy would become the requirement for students. And that, is also means we don't have to add personnel. And so that was the most cost-effective and efficient way to include that for our students. So any questions about the updates to IKF?
So I have a good idea, but what does that look like, the financial literacy? What does that class look like?
Well, everything that you, I mean, it's really about equipping students with the knowledge and the skills that they need to be financially independent, right?
So
it
something
is-
as simple as like balancing a checkbook, savings, budgeting, things like that.
Right, exactly. All of those things. And I think, the state of Ohio has recognized a lot of those things were done in home economics a long time ago and, kind of became lost. And so then they've, came out with the requirement that we must teach this as part of social studies somewhere. But I don't think they're confident that there's a lot of time being dedicated to that sometimes it might get pushed to the side because it's not, even though it's embedded in the curriculum, it's not a required course. So I think this is an attempt to kind of pull that out and highlight it and say our students need these foundational skills. They have to know what it means to buy a home. What are the advantages to renting versus owning a home? What is it like to balance a checkbook? These are life-sustaining skills, and I think they want us to highlight that by having a standalone course dedicated to that.
Well, obviously, as a banker, that's enticing to me, and it's very much needed because even clients that I see that don't have those basic skills, and you're right, back in my day, it was a home ec 2-week portion of that class that taught that. So I hugely support this. I think it's very much needed, and it's like it.
Other questions? You referenced it, you think it will be provided through Butler Tech at our campus?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a great idea.
And part of that conversation too is the licensure requirement. That has been an interesting part of this whole process for school districts. And so, we're working with Butler Tech because you can have a consumer science licensure in order to teach it. Kind of handcuffed us a little bit with the licensure aspect, but like anything else, that could change by the time, districts have to start to implement, which is next year. Now, we had already made the decision that we're not going to offer that to our freshmen. We want to offer that at the senior high. So next year will continue to be a planning year for us. So things may change for us, but we intend next year when we present the program of studies that financial literacy course will be spelled out in there.
Well, we did the reality check a couple of years ago, partnering with the Fairfield Chamber, and it was amazing to see how many kids came through that did not understand any of that. And this is a stepping stone to help them understand that, which is obviously a life tool that they need, from buying a car to a house to using credit and building savings and such as that. So I think this is a great thing.
Yeah, I had occasion to attend a UC Department of Economics program, and they talked about their efforts to teach financial literacy all the way down into the elementary schools, and then they were huge advocates for this bill and getting this passed. Obviously, it'd be done at the high school level, but one of the things they said, and it's quite true, if your parents don't have this skill, right, where are you going to develop it, right? If we're not teaching it, it'll be another generation that struggles with financial literacy, financial competency, and that's not good for anyone. So I think it's a great thing, and whether it's us leading it or Butler Tech leading it, I'm glad it's coming to the schools in the fall.
The other policy I have for you tonight, or actually it's not a policy, I'm sorry, it's a regulation. It's IL-R, testing programs. So this is a required regulation that we did not have. And so we are simply adopting OSBA's sample language with the revisions that they have made as a result to the revision to the revised code. And so that's why I'm presenting this regulation tonight. Do you have any questions about the testing programs regulation? Thank you.
All right, my second item for board discussion is a revision to the administrator salary and benefits plan dated May 16th, 2019. It's in regard to the state teachers retirement system and the school employees retirement system board pickup. We have some tremendous principals and assistant principals and other administrators within our district, and it's our hope that we can keep them. And so the district has been working really hard over the last several years to make sure that our salaries and compensation packages are competitive. And recently, we began looking at the pickup of the retirement plan for us as compared to other area school districts. We looked at 16 of them, and 9 of those districts pay full pickup for their administrators. That's 14% of the salary for professional administrators and 10% for support administrators. The remaining districts, there are 7 of them, only 2 of them pay less than we pay. And so we're currently paying 8%. Our recommendation, what we've been doing over the last several years, is every couple years we raise it a couple percentage points so it doesn't hit us all at one time. And we want to make that jump again this year, or starting for next year. We want to go from our current 8% to a 10%. That would put us ahead of 3 districts and then tied with another 3 districts. And then, ultimately, we would like to get up where the other 9 districts are. But we would like you to consider raising that from 8% to 10% for administrators this next school year. We feel this would be a great step forward in the compensation package.
Mr. Martin, you might have mentioned it, but the process here is, or the thought is, that teachers have to pay 14%
Yes.
of their salary into the program?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. And this is for our administrators, so this isn't the
Administrators.
teachers, but
Okay.
teachers as well have to pay 14% into their retirement as well. Any questions or thoughts about that? All right. Very interesting that we had a presentation tonight on our extracurriculars, because my next item is our annual extracurricular review committee. They get together and consider different positions that people have requested across the district, or changes in current salaries or job titles or that type of thing, job descriptions. So they got together in April, and we're bringing some thoughts to you tonight to consider. We would like to have them voted on at our next meeting. So each April we do this. It's a committee that is formed of half administrators and half teachers. So there's equal power in those discussions between administrators and teachers. Of the 14 requests that we received for new or revised positions this year, the committee approved 10 of those. And if the board chooses to approve all 10 of these at the next meeting, that would be an increase in our 22-23 budget of just over $13,000. So I would like to share with you what has been offered, and some of it ties in beautifully with what's already been presented here tonight. They've approved a new intramural volleyball coach position for Central Elementary, another opportunity for our elementary students, intramural volleyball. The second item is a house tribal coordinator. We approved this in the high school last year, and they just got it started the second half of the year this year, but they've adopted a curriculum that includes freshmen as well. The curriculum is used in an advisory period once a week, and it promotes all kinds of social emotional health issues and making connections. So that's a new position for the freshman school. Fourthly, we've had a dance team and had a coach for some time now, but they have gotten more and more active. They're attending more sports, more games, doing more presentations, so they now need an assistant coach. The next item is an after-school tutoring coordinator. We already talked about tutoring that's happening in our middle schools. Creekside has requested an after-school coordinator. There are 20 to 25 students who are tutored several days each week. There are 3 teachers involved. They provide snacks for the students. They advertise it. They need someone to oversee that program, so that's been approved. The next item's an intramural soccer coach. We have soccer in some of the elementaries, but we don't have it in the middle school. So this is Creekside requesting intramural soccer. The next 3 items that I want to talk about is what we just witnessed with OSHA approving and sanctioning girls wrestling. So the boys wrestling and girls wrestling are going to be in the same program. So now we need a coach to work with the girls. They'll probably do some other things with the guys as well, but we need a dedicated coach for the girls program at both the senior high and the freshman level. So those are 2 positions. And then because the wrestling coach, he did just cover boys wrestling, but because now he's in charge of girls wrestling as well, we're changing the title to be wrestling head coach for boys and girls, and we're moving him up. It's not a new position, but moving him up on the salary schedule from a level 11 to a level 12. Then we've also changing the schedule for a softball assistant coach. The pay has been fairly low, and they've had difficulty finding people to take that position, so we've moved it up on the salary schedule by just 1 notch. And then finally, and Mr. Blankenship also mentioned this, that now boys volleyball has been sanctioned by OSHA, and so we're requesting a schedule change because they're going to be involved in all kinds of new tournaments. It will now, the preparation for that will extend throughout the school year longer than it has in the past, and so we're moving that schedule change up from a Schedule 6 to a Schedule 7. The amounts are all listed there of what that will cost us for each of these, but those are the 10 items that were approved by our committee, and we'll be looking for you to approve them at the next meeting, and also the teachers union will have to approve them, and they're in the process of doing that right now. Any questions about any of these?
Yeah, can you explain that house tribal coordinator again? What in detail, what is that again?
Oh, that's a good question. It's brand new. Our high school is so large that they wanted to divide it into smaller schools or groups and have friendly competition among the groups. The closest thing I can use to describe it would be, most people are familiar with Harry Potter, and they have the different houses at Hogwarts, that they compete against each other. It's kind of friendly fun. So the high school wanted to do that. They've started doing it this year. But in addition to all that friendly competition, they've actually, and Mrs. Ogg helped with that, I believe, came up with an actual curriculum that helps with the social emotional learning that need to take place in our young people. And so an advisory period will be scheduled each week for them to spend 30 minutes in that type of curriculum. So that was happening at the high school. We approved it last year. The curriculum covers grades 9 through 12, so we want to do a similar thing now at the freshman school.
Okay.
So that's what that's all about.
Okay. And then on the 13 and 14 that was disapproved.
Yes.
The head football coach, wrestling coach, both 7th and 8th grade.
Yes.
So do we not have coaches there at all? Or are we taken from?
These were disapproved because actually the people who requested it didn't really necessarily fill out the forms correctly or really have an overall vision. So we're giving them a chance to revamp those. Currently, we have 12 football coaches in 7th and 8th grade.
Okay.
We do not currently have a head coach. So what they requested was to move the head coach up to another notch. But we don't have a head coach. We just have 12 coaches.
I got you.
So they have to kind of reorganize and develop head coaches, and for those to be processed, they'll be processed next year, I'm sure.
Isn't the same with the wrestling?
Yes.
Okay.
And they have existing coaches. There's just not a head coach for those programs.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions about any of these? All right. My final, well, not really my final item, but my next item, item 4, is a memorandum of understanding between the Fairfield Classroom Teachers Association and the Fairfield City School District Board of Education regarding professional development days for the 22-23 school year. This is actually pretty simple, and there was a request from our curriculum department. Mrs. Aug already mentioned that we're having a new reading series next year, and this has to do with the professional development that needs to be done with the reading series. Our professional development days, our in-service days, are all outlined in our teacher's contract. So if we move from those, we really have to have a memorandum of understanding where everybody agrees to move away from what was bargained. So what's been bargained is that there's a full day of in-service in September for our teachers, and there are 4 days a year, but in September, it's a full day. In January, it's a half day. This program that they've developed, they need a full day of training for all of our elementary teachers in January. After they've used the program for half a year, they need a full day of professional development. Well, the full day is in September, but it won't do them any good there. So what we're doing is just switching those days so that instead of having a full day in September and a half day in January for our elementary school teachers, it'll be flipped. So they will have a half day in September and a full day in January. It's what we need to be able to provide appropriate professional development for them. That's what the MOU boils down to. Any questions about that? The FCTA also has to approve this, and they're in the process of getting it approved as well. We'll have this on the agenda at our next meeting.
All right. Our next item for discussion, student fees for 2022-2023 school year. I'll turn it over to Mrs. Aug.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Begley, members of the board, you'll find a copy of the fees in your board packet. Put a cover sheet on there for you so you can just kind of get an overview of what is in the handouts, especially since the one for 9 through 12 is a little tiny and hard to read. But Mrs. Post-Pischel has been working diligently with our building principals and department chairs for the past several months on student fees. And, you know, we work very hard to try to maintain those fees at the current level. We look for ways even to decrease fees as we can. I know, I'll have to send this to you as an attachment tomorrow. I'm sure you didn't bring your magnifying glass tonight. So I am very happy to report that the majority of the fees will either remain the same or even be lowered for next school year. So there were actually no changes to the fee schedule for students in preschool through 5th grade. So all of those fees remain the same. For grades 6 through 8, you'll see one of the highlights in blue. We added a new course called Explorations in French, hoping to get more students interested in the French language and into French 1 as early as 8th grade. So that's just a new fee. That course just carries a fee. And then in grades 9 through 12, similarly, we added 3 new elective courses at the high school, and those are highlighted in blue. So those are new course fees, and that's for advanced standing French. We're now offering a CCP French course, and the 2 new Black History courses that we'll be offering next year as well. The other changes to the high school fee schedule are highlighted in green, and the fees in each one of those courses were actually decreased. So that's, you know, we were very happy to see that in those 16 courses, and I've just listed those on the cover page for you. So this concludes my item for board discussion. Any questions for me?
So is this one in yellow, the introduction to graphic design, is that the only one that's like increased, quote, quote?
Yes, and, you know, we reached out to Butler Tech to understand that, but the person who oversees it is out right now due to a family emergency, so I don't have a lot of details. A lot of Butler Tech courses will carry like a baseline fee, like maybe $35, And then anything on top of that is typically used for supplies and things like that. So that's what we anticipate. The answer being, we just couldn't get confirmation on that. But that's pretty standard for Butler Tech courses. I know you can't really see see the other ones, but all of them are around the same cost. And so that's typically like the association fee of about $30 or $35, and then plus a little bit for supplies for their courses.
So is that a new course provided, or is that just something, the fee's just new?
No, the fee is new.
Okay.
Anything else? Good?
All right, up next,
Thank you.
another memorandum of understanding regarding the Juneteenth holiday. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, Mr. Begley, members of the board. Recently, Governor DeWine signed Senate Bill 11 into law. Among other things, it grants Juneteenth as a paid holiday to all non-teaching staff members employed on an 11 or 12-month basis. This year, the holiday happens to fall on Monday, June 20th. This will impact approximately 75 staff members in total. We have, the HR department has been working with all of our local unions, the 378, the 568, and the 727, to draft MOUs. And the goal is to bring that back to the next meeting for approval. And then in the next negotiation, adopt appropriate language for this holiday to be adopted during negotiations. So, because it's law, we're moving forward with it. The union's been very flexible and cooperative, and we've already communicated to all those employees that will be affected that we are working through the process, so they are aware that we are actively working through this process.